Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Squared. Welcome back to Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, I saw some breaking news before I came on that I'm sure you're going to be pumped up about. And that is one Eli Manning is nominated, is in the pool there for the 2025 Hall of Fame class. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think he'll probably end up getting in.
First ballot?
I mean, I think he should. He's top 10 in passing yards. And I think people will always go to he's the only one that's beaten Brady twice in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah. Such an interesting case. I saw this when he said it. He's exactly in a regular season 117 for 117. He's 117 wins, 117 losses in the regular season. But that wouldn't have got him in. It's the postseason, and I want to be consistent, right? Because I've always said guys like Andy Pettit, I thought should be in the Hall of Fame because of his postseason. Bernie Williams. Um, so yeah, I think he will get in. I'm not so sure on the first ballot, but I think he'll get in. Hey, there's another guy we're leaving out of the MVP conversation in the National League, and that is one Luis Arraez. Especially since the Padres have played so well since they got him, or they took off a little bit after they got him. Did you see this past week that he struck out?
that's breaking news in and of itself.
Yes. Do you know how long he went without striking out?
Wasn't it like 140 plate appearances or something like that?
141 plate appearances, 5 weeks. He hadn't struck out since sometime in early August. Just amazing. But he's batting 324. He's got 194 hits, so he's gonna have over 200 hits, 4 homers, 43 RBIs. But he only has, this is like Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn territory. He only has 28 strikeouts on the whole year. Yeah.
I bet you we can find a lot of players that have 28 strikeouts since the beginning of September.
In the yeah. Yes, in a week probably. All right. I hate to end our first segment here on a negative tip. Actually, I won't because we'll talk about the Milwaukee Brewers in 1 second. What was Victor Robles thinking the other day against your Yankees? Trying to steal home, 2 outs with the bases loaded and a 3-0 count to Justin Turner, one of the best clutch hitters of our time. Robles always had the reputation of not being a very smart player when he was with the Nationals. He latches on here with the Mariners and they give him a contract extension. But I saw that the highlights the other day and I was scratching my head. What was he thinking?
I don't know. Also, Luisa was so on the ropes. Like, you basically bailed him out, and he had a great start after that. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I think he thought because Heel had his back turned for a second. But the Yankees very alert were yelling at him, throw, he's going home. But anyway, and I saw that Julio Rodriguez made a really bad base running blunder yesterday. I don't know. The Mariners are not getting into the playoffs. All right, we'll end it on a positive note. Milwaukee Brewers clinched first team clinch. I know your Yankees did, but they clinched the division, the Brewers. Um, but here's why this is real positive for me, Kenny. They changed managers, Greg Counsell. So they did it without him. Christian Yelich out for the season. They did it without him. They haven't missed a beat. They traded their best pitcher, Corbin Burns, in the offseason. Brandon Woodruff is still injured. He hasn't been there all year. And one of the best closers in the game, Devin Williams, has missed half the season, yet this team is fighting for the best record. What were your thoughts on the Brewers?
Good for the Brewers. I know Brewers fans, I don't know any, but I'm sure they're really happy watching Craig Counsell not make the playoffs. So.
Yes. Yeah. I think they're really a remarkable story and consistency that nobody talks about. I mean, they make the playoffs every year, but will they get to the World Series? I don't know. They haven't been there since 1982, I believe, when Keith Hernandez led the Cardinals past them. Anyway, are you ready to get this going?
Let's get into this.
All right. This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
With the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Welcome back. We have got so much to cover today, Kenny. We are going to start in the NFL. And I love you sent me something about the tiers. I love that. I want to give you plenty of time to do that. But first, our quick recap of last week. I was at an event most of the day Sunday, so I missed a lot of early games. I saw from, I think, the second quarter on of Chiefs Bengals. A little too sleepy to watch most of the Sunday night games, so I missed Jets and Giants. I'm happy for a Jets win. I don't have a ton to talk about that. Looked like Rodgers looked solid. The team looked much better than they did on Monday night. They were playing Tennessee, who's not a very good team, but I'll take the win. And they're right back at it tonight against the Patriots, who have looked a lot better than they have the last few years. So I think it's going to be a tough game tonight. But so we'll put the Jets now to the side. I want to hear from you about your New York Giants. I predicted a win here, but they didn't quite make it. So what's your recap on the Giants? And then we'll get to the Browns as well.
All right. Well, first with the Giants, supposedly they knew that their kicker was not going to be available, and yet they didn't sign a kicker.
Yeah. I couldn't figure that one out. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't say that's a Daboll thing. That's a Joe Sheen thing right there.
Yeah.
But this is the stat that'll probably pain you for a while if you're a Giants fan. The Giants are the first team in NFL history to score 3 touchdowns, give up none, and lose the game in regulation.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, it's I don't know. Daniel Jones shaves his face, so hopefully that means he'll play better. They play the Browns this week, so
yeah, we gotta get to that. Now, what do you mean by he changed his face? He shaved?
He shaved, yeah.
Oh, he shaved his beard. Okay. So superstitious that he's not gonna, well, maybe he needs to grow it back because they lost still to the Command. So did Daniel Jones look better? I'm assuming he did.
Yeah. I mean, Malik Neighbors also has become like, I don't know. I benched him in fantasy and he would have scored like 28 points on me or for me. But
yeah,
I think there's still a little bit of optimism there. But the Giants and Browns is going to be a very interesting game because I think for both of them, they're still kind of teams trying to navigate like what is life. If the Giants lose on Sunday, well, they're already in the tier anyway. It's baseball season. It's playoff baseball. So
yeah.
I watch more Browns games anyway because of where I am. So
yeah. And the Browns, that is there in Cleveland, correct?
Yeah.
Giants Browns. Let's go to the Browns, and then I really want to talk about when they play each other on Sunday, 1:00 game. The Browns got to win, and I think the first question that I asked you was how did and they beat the Jaguars, yes. The first question I asked you was how was Deshaun Watson? So, how was Deshaun Watson?
He was better. I'll pull up his stat line here in a sec. Like there was still nothing that was like, wow, like I'm really impressed. I feel like Browns fans are still kind of hoping and praying that we're going to get the Deshaun Watson of Houston, but I think he's gone.
Yeah.
All right, so 186 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, a 7.8 rating, 64% completion percentage. So it's like you didn't lose us the game, but you didn't necessarily win us the game either type of performance.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that game reflects more on the troubles of Jacksonville than it does on the Browns. But I guess we'll see. Because if they can come out and they can put up, I don't know, 20, 25 points against the Giants, I think there'll start to be some optimism, especially because the division we thought was going to be the best is not good right now. So.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go to your tier thing, which I thought was awesome. I love how you did that in a second. But before that, let's talk a little bit more about Giants Browns. Which team has the most to gain here? Which team has the most to lose?
Well, I think if the Browns start out 2-1, I think they have the most to gain. Because like, I don't know. I would be surprised at this point if the Giants have any shot. I know like their division is still kind of technically they're only a game out because everyone else is 1-1. But like, do you really think they're going to be better than the Eagles or the Cowboys or the Commanders? But yeah, you look on the other side with Cleveland. The Ravens started out 0-2. The Bengals started out 0-2. And the Steelers are 2-0, which no one expected.
Yeah.
But like, you go into that one feeling like if you go into week 4 at 2-1, you feel a lot better about yourself that you can actually continue to build this momentum. Also, adding in that Nick Chubb is back. I think at this point, like, I think I'll say a few things here. I think if the Giants lose, it's going to be one of the last starts for Daniel Jones. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone by October as the starting quarterback.
Even if he plays well and they lose?
Well, I guess if he plays well, maybe he would stay. But if the Browns lose and they're at 1-2, I don't think that they would make the switch as quickly.
Okay.
They might, but I don't think they will.
Okay. Gotcha. Can the Giants pull an upset here?
Sure.
I mean, the Browns,
I don't have much faith.
While the Browns have not been great, talent-wise, the Browns are a much better team. I mean, I think, you being a dying hard in the wool, Giants fan would agree with that. Yes, that the Browns are, so this would be an upset. But it's hard for me to see them scoring a lot of points on this Browns defense, which I think I think this is turning into their strong point because I was surprised that they held the Jaguars the way they did. So I don't see a great chance for an upset here, but I think best of both worlds is that there's a really good showing by the Giants. It's a close game. Maybe the Browns win it late. The Giants can't make same type of personnel mistake like they did with their kicker, this past week. So I think it should be a good game because I think that the Giants will have some fight there, and I think you hit it on the head. There's some interesting matchups this week, but that division that the Browns are in, man, is kind of flipped upside down, and it gets late early in football. It really does. Maybe not as much as it has in years past with the extra game, with 17 now, and I'd bet anything, and I'm not a betting guy, as you know, and you're not either, but I'd bet anything that it'll be 18 games next year. So this early part won't mean as much. I mean, that's always been the beauty of football for a while. 16 games. If somebody starts out 0-2, 0-3, it gets very, very difficult to get into the playoffs. Not as much now. I did get to watch what I thought was an entertaining game, the Chiefs and the Bengals. Are you as surprised as I am that the Bengals seem to be the only team that have the Chiefs number?
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, the Chiefs still beat them, and they beat them 3 straight times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people will like look at at that pass interference, and people will say, "Oh, well, the Chiefs got that call." It was the right call.
It was pass interference. Like, I mean,
yeah.
No, it really was.
So like, you can't get mad at the refs for calling the right call. People would torch the Patriots back in the day with Tom Brady, or the Chiefs now if they got that call for them and it wasn't called.
Yeah. I mean, and you just knew that Buckner was not missing that field goal. That guy is as money as you could get. Him and the Ravens kicker. I mean, we're seeing history with those two guys, I thought, Kenny, that the Ja'Marr Chase penalty was a killer for them. And I don't know what he said, but I don't know, could the ref have maybe swallowed the whistle there and not? I mean, Chase must have said something pretty awful, I think, because he went back at him a second time. But you don't see it that much in the NFL. They tend to give them a lot of rope. NBA, you see them get teed up pretty quickly. in baseball, if they argue now, I mean, you've got really sensitive umpires who have rabbit ears, and somebody says something from the dugout, they throw them out. You don't see that much in the NFL. So I was surprised. I was equally as surprised that Chase, who's now a bit of a veteran, lost his composure like that at such a critical time in the game.
Yeah, you got to keep your cool there. I know.
Yeah.
I know it's probably boiling up with him between a
Yeah.
contract dispute and the
Yeah.
fact that they
Yeah.
were like
Yeah.
on the losing the game.
Yeah.
But you've got to keep your cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like you don't want to lose a game like that in December.
No. And that wasn't the because his point was that there should have been a flag thrown because of that hip tackle thing. That the guy, and I'm forgetting, was it McDuffie, I think, right? That tackled him. You could tell about midway through he realized, uh-oh, and he moved his like hips away and his legs away from him, before he brought him down. Because I think McDuffie almost realized that, uh-oh, I'm in the middle of an illegal tackle, and that would have been a killer penalty, for the Chiefs. But the Chiefs always seem to get these breaks, but I'm with you, man. That was pass interference. That wasn't a break. I mean, it was. Now, did their receiver go back a little bit? Yes, but he was trying to get the ball. The Bengals, and I felt bad for him because they wouldn't take the camera off of him, for a bit. But that was definitely pass interference. All right, before we go to next week, why don't you walk the audience through the tier system that you have and hit each one at a time and all the teams. And I may throw in my 2 cents as you go through, but I think you nailed it exactly. So go ahead.
All right. So people always talk about like people love to do like the power ranking type of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't do that here.
Yeah.
I made a ranking or a tier based on what I think the fans are feeling. And I made 5 because you can make as many as you want. And
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. So
Right.
I made 5. So I'm going to start at the bottom. The bottom here is I'm watching baseball. These are teams, these are fans of teams that like their team has not showed up in their first couple games, and you're more concerned about baseball, or you're more concerned about the NBA. You're looking more at preseason matchups and things like that. So I have 4 teams there. I got the Titans, who had a couple brutal losses there, including the one on week 1. I have the Broncos. Broncos aren't looking at baseball, that's for sure. They're probably looking more at basketball, but it still works.
Right.
I have the Giants there because, yeah, if I have the choice between an early October game between the Giants and the Cowboys versus postseason baseball, I'm picking postseason baseball.
Especially if it's the Yankees, yeah.
Yeah. And then last is the Panthers with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
I feel bad for them. Honestly, I had no idea that Andy Dalton was still in the league until they said that he's a starter for week 3. So
No, you didn't know Andy Dalton was. I think Andy Dalton will get them a couple of wins. I really do. But all right, I got no disagreement with any of those. Go ahead. What's your next tier?
All right, next tier is I'm really concerned. These are teams that have not started off well, and there's definitely a couple of red flags here. Now, these first 4 are all kind of in the same boat because they all are 0-2. 0-2 teams since 1990 make the playoffs at about a 14% clip. So, like, you are hardcore in danger of making the playoff, of missing the playoffs, and they have playoff aspirations. 0-3 is basically death. I think there's like 2 or 3 teams that started out 0-3 that have made the playoffs. So,
wow.
So those 4 teams: Baltimore, Cincinnati, the Rams, and also the Jaguars. Now, with both Baltimore and Cincinnati, yes, they played, but also they lost to teams that they shouldn't have lost to. So
right.
The Rams, it's a lot more injury based.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
They've been losing everyone. Cooper Kupp is going to be on the IR. It's not looking good there. And also Aaron Donald's gone. So it might be a long season for the It was Jacksonville, and I was thinking about this earlier. Their Trevor Lawrence in that draft class. That draft class brutally bad. Because Lawrence has not done what you would expect from a number one overall. Wilson, we know the story. Trey Lance, Mac Jones, like hasn't been a good draft class, but they've got to figure it out. I think the seat's gonna get really hot for Doug Peterson very quickly.
Yeah, I think so.
The last two, it's I'm really concerned. You have Miami, who obviously they're more concerned about their quarterback,
Yeah.
and Indianapolis, who they've had a pretty brutal start to their season too.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any disagreement there. I'll just mention this, that at 4:25 on Sunday, the Ravens are at Dallas. And that is the game that I've highlighted as I'm the most fascinated by this coming Sunday. Aside from Giants Browns, which I think is going to be very interesting. And there's a few others that we'll name when we get there. But I don't think anybody expected either Ravens or Bengals, even though they played the Chiefs, both of them, you're right, to be 0-2. I would be concerned, both those teams, because again, you're right, they have playoff aspirations. Okay. What's your next tier?
The next tier is I don't know what to think. These are teams where it's like, are they good? Are they bad?
Right.
One week was really good, one week was really bad. So I'll run through them. I have a bunch of 2-0 teams on here. It's like the Vikings. Sam Darnold is good now. Like, what in the world?
He's been really good.
Also, the Saints. The Saints not only have like beaten people, they have completely annihilated people. I know one of them is the Panthers, but still.
Yeah.
They made the Cowboys look like the Panthers last week. So
yep. Yeah.
The Steelers with Justin Fields,
yeah.
like no one expected them to be 2-0.
Right.
You have the Bears. I don't know what to think with Caleb Williams. He has yet to throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me. But also they're 1-1. Their defense looks pretty good. So they're the Packers. I don't know what to think with them. Like Jordan Love's hurt, so you kind of thought it would start to go downhill, but then they somehow are running the football well. So that's there. The Patriots had a very Jekyll and Hyde type of season. Week 1, they were looking great. Week 2, they were looking like we thought they would.
Yeah.
Also, the Browns, I still don't know what to think with them. Maybe they're good. Maybe they're bad. Like, would I be that surprised if they lost to the Giants? No.
Mm-hmm.
But also, would I be surprised if they started the season like 5-1? Also, no. The Raiders with Antonio Pierce, like they're the ones that were supposed to be like the bottom feeders of that division.
Yeah.
And yet here they are, like actually doing something.
Yeah.
And last is the Commanders. It's probably teetering more towards being concerned, but I have them in there because they had a good week 1. I guess they didn't have a great week 1, but they had a week 1.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I love all of those. I don't have any disagreement. I think the one I'm most fascinated with, Kenny, is the Saints. I expected them to be good last year. I didn't expect it to be that good this year. I always liked Derek Carr. I always felt like he got a really bad shake there with the Raiders. I always thought he was a very good quarterback, a little bit underrated. So I have here, and again, we'll get back to it, but I have as one of the games I'm fascinated with at 1:00 is Eagles Saints. I mean, I just, because I have no idea who's going to win that. Well, if the Saints play the way they did these first few weeks, they'll demolish the Eagles, and the Eagles might be in a little bit of trouble. So go ahead. What's your next tier?
Next tier is I still feel good about them.
Right.
These fan bases, like they might have had a loss. They might have 2. Actually, I think they're all 1-1.
Okay.
But there wasn't anything like significantly flaggy about it. So you're like, okay, we still feel good. We're not undefeated, but you're going to lose a game. So like, we're still feeling good. The Lions are in there.
Right. Right.
Like they feel pretty good about their team. I have the Jets in there. I feel like a lot of Jet fans are still like, we lost to the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers is still trying to figure out what it means to be a quarterback in a different league. So we still feel good. The Eagles, if if Saquon Barkley doesn't drop a very easy pass in the flat, they're
Shocked
talking
me.
about being 2-0.
I was
Yeah,
shocked at that because he's such a good receiver. But go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. I I'm glad that he did it because it would have looked a lot worse on the Giants.
Right.
The Cowboys. Now, I feel like a lot of Cowboy fans are very concerned after losing so badly to the Saints, but I think that you'll get back on the horse. Now, the Ravens are a tough ask because they are Lamar Jackson is 20-1 against the NFC in his career.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
So
that. Wow.
yeah, so it's tough, but I also think they have a shot. Um, last two, the 49ers, like I know they had a weird loss. Did you know that they haven't won in Minnesota since 1992?
Oh, wow. I did not
Um,
know that. That was back when it was the frozen tundra, when they played
yeah.
outdoors. Yeah. Wow.
So it's been a minute there. Sometimes it's just not their night. And Mister, you like that Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins. I think it's another one of those like bad week one. Something. Oh, Arthur Smith, who was the coach last year, is the defensive coordinator for the Steelers, who they played. So a tremendous coaching disadvantage. Also, new coach, new quarterback, new system. It might take a minute. So if you're a Falcons fan, you're probably feeling pretty good heading into week 3.
I would think so. Okay. Was that 5 tiers or was there one more?
There's one more.
Yeah.
Last one is these are teams we're good like we thought we would be. These are teams that like you kind of figured they would be good, and here they are. So Kansas City, obviously, we don't have to say much more about them. Buffalo has been sneaky really good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they haven't been talked about a lot. The Chargers under Harbaugh, I know we might touch on some kind of Stallion stuff later, but Harbaugh has done what he always does, it seems like. The Texans, they have a 2-game lead over everyone in that division. Everyone else is 0-2.
Yeah.
Good luck there. I have to put the Bucks here because Baker Mayfield continues to make the Browns look bad, but he's been great.
He's been great.
I didn't think he would be, but
yeah.
And then a pair of AFC West teams, the Cardinals and the Seahawks. We talked about resurgence. What about the resurgence of Geno Smith still? Which is still incredible.
It really is.
And Kyler Murray, I think the Cardinals are one of those teams that people kind of forgot were good when Kyler Murray was healthy.
Yeah.
And now that he's healthy and he has a top flight receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr.,
yeah,
things can get very interesting out
there. Yeah, it's only 2 short years ago the Cardinals were right there where they were a contender, and it was because he was hurt last year they were so bad. I love that. We got to do this every week if I don't, if that's okay. I think these are dead on, but it's fun here early in the season as well. Man, you were dead on with those. Those were great. All right, real quick, what to watch on Sunday? Well, the Pats and Jets tonight. I have to tell you, that's probably going to be my second tier because I'm more into Mets Phillies tonight. So, but I'll probably have that on the iPad. You can't turn back and forth because it's on Amazon. So I'll probably have Amazon on the iPad and watch the Mets. But most of my attention is going to be on the Mets, and we'll probably be done by halftime or third quarter. That I can watch the rest of the Jets tonight. I think the Jets will win, but I think that's going to be a really, really good game. I already said Eagles Saints. Speaking of Houston, they are at Minnesota to take on the Vikings. What are you thinking there?
That's a fun matchup. It's like one of those weird interconference matchups, but it works so well.
And it's at the right time, right? Because the Vikings are playing so well. Houston is playing so well. The other great 1 o'clock matchup, I think, is Chargers in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers.
That's also a big one. We're going to have 2 teams that are definitely 3-0 heading into next week.
Yeah. It's so interesting that Mike Tomlin continues to say, and I think Justin Fields has played good. I don't think he's been great, but he's been good enough to get them 2 wins. He keeps saying as soon as Russell Wilson is healthy, he's the number 1 quarterback. So we got to see how that shakes out. You're saying no, but
he's hurt like DJ LeMahieu's hurt. It's hurt out of convenience.
Yeah. I mean, Tomlin in the press conference said nothing has changed. He's the number 1 guy when he's healthy enough to play. And then, of course, at 4:25, I'm fascinated with that Ravens Cowboys. I think that's going to be quite the game. The desperation is going to be there from the Ravens for sure. I mean, if the Ravens start out 0-3, boy, oh boy, that will quickly become a big story. Um, and if Dallas gets smoked, that will quickly become a big story. If it's a close game and the Ravens win by 3, last minute field goal, I don't think Dallas is going to panic too much. But I think if the Ravens win 35-10 or something like that, the calls for Mike McCarthy are gonna just, come raining down, Um, the Sunday night game is actually pretty good as well. And for some reason, in my attention, because Sundays is the long day, but my attention doesn't. I just it's hard for me to watch the Sunday night game. I'm usually exhausted by then. But KC at Atlanta, I think, very very interesting matchup there. And then Monday night, you just talked about the Bills, Jacksonville at up in Buffalo. I think that's a great early season matchup, especially since Jacksonville is going to be playing very desperate, and the Bills, like you said, have been so good. So I don't know. Did you have any other game that I missed?
No, I think you nailed them all. Oh, the other one, the Lions at the Cardinals to me is also very interesting.
Yeah.
That's another 425 one.
Okay.
Um, that could be a wow, the Cardinals are really good, or yeah, the
Yeah.
Lions are who we thought they were. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They were who we thought they were. I'm sorry. There's a little Cardinals reference there, right? Dennis Green. All right. Um, let's stay on football and let's talk about the Connor Stallions documentary. You got to watch it. First, give me some of your overall thoughts, and then I'll just pick some things here that I have jotted down, especially things that I learned that I didn't know that I thought I knew. There was so much I didn't know that I learned watching this documentary. What were your overall thoughts?
well, it's so interesting how someone like because you don't think of someone that's like built to be a coach
Yeah,
typically,
yeah,
but Connor Stallions was definitely built to be a coach.
yeah.
Like between dressing up as a coach for Halloween and all of the different things
When he's
that
a
he
little
learned
kid.
along the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just like the intricate sign stealing aspect of it is so interesting because like it's one thing to kind of try to figure it out and try to figure out who's the guy, but he like went as far in depth as you can go.
Ugh,
And I don't know, it still seems like something's weird there. It's like I know they said it was probably like a booster or something, but I still say that Jim Harbaugh had to have known something was going on.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
there's no way.
Yeah, I agree, and that was left a little bit hanging. We have to kind of come to our own conclusion, on that. Um, just like we almost have to come to our own conclusion of that clear picture of him on the sidelines, where he's kind of disguised as a coach. He never denies that. He just says, that doesn't look like me. Um, you know, so yes, that he always wanted to be a coach. I found that fascinating. I don't know many. Usually, coaching is something you get into because you're a player, right? Or you're a player and you're not maybe good enough. I think of the Van Gundys, like that, and they immediately get into coaching. The Danny Hurleys of the world, who was a player but not quite, there. He wanted to be a coach from day one, from the time he's a little boy. Were you surprised that not only was he in the Marines, he's a captain in the Marines? Did that surprise you?
Yeah, and also I loved his. It's interesting that his reasoning behind it was a lot of the top flight coaches were in the Marines, so he figured
Yes.
that in order for him to be a high end coach, like it wasn't because he wanted to like. I'm not saying it wasn't because he didn't want to serve his country, but like his bigger motivation was like, I've got to learn how to do this.
Yeah.
This is my career arc, so to speak.
And that's a great point. Here's a couple other things that surprised me about him because I guess when you first read the story, you're thinking this is just some guy who easily was manipulated into doing this or whatever. Um, but he is borderline genius. He's just this super, super smart guy. I mean, all of the signals, I mean, he just goes way out of his way. And I'll say something about that in a second that also surprised me. But all those, do you remember seeing all these elaborate charts that he puts together? I mean, it's like this
Yeah,
guy never sleeps. I don't know how he had all that time to do this, but no one, I'm sure, broke down and decoded the signals like he did. Were you surprised that he's just this almost genius type guy who's a captain in the Marines?
Yeah, and I guess that's the other thing too is like, okay, so I like the brain of Connor Stallions is so interesting, just like being able to put it all together and like continue to like build on it.
Yeah.
But then it seems like if he was really like the mastermind behind all of the selling of tickets and like making all that public, either he didn't realize what he was doing was wrong, which I don't know if that's the case, or he just is like that dumb and wasn't thinking about
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So that's another thing. You just hit on something that that I also didn't know. The sign stealing itself is not illegal in college football to steal signs. What is illegal was what he did in terms of going to other games and stealing signs of teams that Michigan was scheduled to play. And that's where the illegal part comes in. Because he was so consumed, Kenny, I'm with you here. I think you were going down this path. Because he was so consumed with deciphering all this, and this took hours and hours and hours, I just don't think that he was the one who not only brought tickets, but arranged flights, arranged hotels. There had to be somebody else that was involved in doing all that. And oh, by the way, that cost a lot of money. All these tickets were like on the 50-yard line where they can easily see. Um, I mean, so I want to get back to when he starts to get caught here and that picture of him on a sideline. Did you catch where Dave Portnoy, who's they become very close friends? And I don't know if Stallions thought that Portnoy would say this. Portnoy says, well, I don't really want to say, but he told me that that was him. And I was like, what? So, and then they switch over to Stallion saying, I gotta say that picture doesn't look like me. I'm like, wait a minute, how the heck did he get on another team's sideline? I mean, I just it just blew me away, Now I didn't realize this. Well, I think I did. Were you surprised that he didn't cooperate with the NCAA, that his lawyer said, absolutely not, you're not talking to them?
it. I think that's interesting because I felt like because I know it seems like he got his dream job at Michigan, but I'm sure he still would like to coach somewhere.
Oh yeah.
And
He loves
and
Michigan.
it
Yeah.
yeah, but like I mean, I guess I also get it too because I think their goal wasn't to get Connor Stallions. I think their goal, and still kind of is, to get Jim
Get
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh, exactly. I thought, now so let's go to that phase for a second, right? And this is where it really gets a little murky. But it was so thought-provoking. The NCAA, when they're ready to talk to Stallions, they have this mountain of evidence. How did they get all of this evidence so quickly? It sometimes takes the NCAA years to finish investigations and stuff like that. They don't have a great reputation as an organization that is, that's why the lawyer that he got hates the NCAA. He said that they are just absolutely awful. There's no way you're going to talk to them. But yet, this is like an airtight case. They had copies of the tickets, hotel receipts. How did they get all of this quick? What were your thoughts?
I mean, they said it a couple times. It had to have been someone from Ohio State, right?
Yeah,
And like, I love Ohio State. Like, I'm an Ohio guy, so but like, it would be way too convenient for it not to like because you had said it takes a while. Something that came to mind is remember how it was a couple of weeks ago that Jim Harbaugh was officially banned
yes,
for the next 4 years because of something he did in 2020,
yes, yes,
and that wasn't
exactly.
even like as big of a deal and as big of a scandal.
I,
Um,
During
but
COVID,
yeah,
yeah. He did exactly because he met these guys at a diner and they finally came up with a receipt that he brought the guy a hamburger or something like that for breakfast, or he brought ate a hamburger for breakfast and the guy remembered that. Yeah, that's 4 years ago, and that finally was in this final thing. So Now, did you catch when they asked the Ohio State coach about it? Did you catch his face when he said, "Yo, this whole thing happening at Michigan, there's rumors now that Ohio State had something to do with, tipping off the NCAA." His face to me said, "Ooh, uh-oh." You know, yes, he has eyes open wide. For those of you that watch us on YouTube, Kenny had his exact expression. Um, it's hard for me to believe that Ohio State didn't have something to do with this in terms of getting them I mean, they hate each other. Let's just face it. Ohio State, Michigan for years can't stand each other. They especially can't stand Jim Harbaugh. And I'm not taking up for Harbaugh here because we'll get back to him in a second. Um, uh, the, I guess though, to be fair, the documentary really leaves us hanging whether or not Harbaugh knew. Stallions totally says that Harbaugh had no involvement in this. What were your thoughts?
I think I don't know if it was something that they came up with together or if this was just Connor Stallions trying to protect him. I
Yeah,
think Stallions knew from kind of early on when things were starting to go down that he was just going to be the fall guy for it.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think
and
he
I
was okay.
wonder why,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I
it
wonder
did
why
seem like
too.
he was okay with it.
Is it just the love that he has for Michigan? Because I would think if they paid him a lot of money to do this, somehow they would have found this by now. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem like he's a guy living, on high on the hog. I mean, I'm sure he gets a nice salary from the Marines, but it didn't strike me. It was kind of strange that he did most of this documentary from his car, and his car is like parked in front of a Michigan sign, and it's on a dark highway, dark road somewhere. That was a little bit odd to me, you know?
Yeah, I agree. It
Yeah.
I don't know. It just that was a little bit odd, and I think it was to me. It is, yeah. Like he loves Michigan so much, and Michigan fans still love him.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, yeah. So cameras start. I guess they knew they were going to do this documentary because cameras start to follow him as Michigan now. They continue to win. They win without all the sign stealing stuff. So they had something to prove. They had quite the chip on their shoulders. A couple of players participated in the documentary. The defensive player, um, said that, okay, now all this is out of the way. We're going to show them that we're a great team without this sign stealing nonsense. And they did. They go on the run and they obviously win the national championship. But Stallions gets to a point late in the season where he's like, I'm showing up to the game, and everybody recognizes him, So, like you said, and he's at the national championship game with cameras and everything. So, but he's crying at the end, when they win the national championship. He's just in love with Michigan. But that to me gave me a pause that I don't think he would ever, if let's say Jim Harbaugh had conversations with him because he gave Stallions this chance, this opportunity with no experience or anything like that, and made him a coach, albeit a second tier type coach, he would never ever say anything bad about Michigan. He would never go to the NCAA and say, you know what, it was Harbaugh that ordered all this stuff. Did you get the feeling that he
yeah.
would ever turn Michigan in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like
Yeah.
I think I then tell what actually happened.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Last couple of quick things, and then I'll see if you have anything else, and we'll turn to baseball. This is a fascinating documentary, by the way. Um, I, the NFL doesn't have this because they have the helmet technology, right? The signals are, the quarterback is hearing them come from the offensive coordinator on most teams, in his helmet, right? He knows what the signal is going to be. The defensive captains, have their helmets as well. I was shocked that why in the heck does the NCAA not have this? So now it looks like they probably will next year. But were you as surprised as I was that the NFL has had that for years? Why wouldn't college football have that? I wonder.
I don't know, other than the fact that they're like cheap. Like that's the only thing I can think of.
It has to be. I found that really weird. So right now, Stallions is still barred from coaching in any NCAA team in college. So he's a high school coach now. You see that at the end, and I think that coach. I think he became the defensive coordinator at a high school. But I think since the documentary, I may have read this. that the coach there is out due to an illness. So he's actually the head coach of that high school team that he was the defensive coordinator from. Did you believe that his email was hacked?
No.
I didn't either. He swears that his email and everything was hacked. Um, Somehow, though, how did they get all this evidence? That's why Ohio State seems to be the logical, person to go to. Um, there was one last thing I wanted to make a point. I think it was the helmet. Oh, it kind of ends with him going before the NCAA, but they don't get anything out of him. I mean, the lady that's interviewing him is angry at him, and they cut it off pretty quickly. The lawyer that hates him says, I had a 12 o'clock appointment anyway, because she doesn't accept his answer that, and I don't either. He says he didn't recall whether he was at any of these games or not. He says, I go to a lot of college football games. I don't recall. It's just like, really? Come on now. Let me ask you that again. And they cut her off right away. The lawyer on one side says he already answered it. And then the other guy's like, yeah, we're done anyway. I have a 12 o'clock appointment. And so they're not going to get anything out of him. And it's not illegal that he would go to jail for what he did. It's just illegal for the NCAA. We highly recommend this documentary, right?
Oh yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's definitely worth it.
It's worth it. It's not that long. It's about an hour and a half, maybe. And
Yeah.
it leaves enough at the end, you know, to for you to draw your own conclusions on a few things. There is a now docu-series on Aaron Hernandez, which I thought I knew everything, but this is kind of a dramatization of it, sort of like the OJ one. And I'm forgetting, I want to say it's on Hulu or FX. And I think the first 2 episodes are out now, and then it's going to be like 10 weeks. Um, I'm again thinking there's not a there's not a whole lot more I need to learn about Aaron Hernandez. But maybe I'll check this out and I'll let you know. But it was fascinating. I'm so glad you watched it. Um, all right, let's talk some baseball. The Yankees clinched. Congratulations. They clinched at least a playoff berth. The Orioles are not catching them. What has happened to the Orioles? What are you seeing?
I don't know. It seems like their offense has kind of died a little bit.
Yeah.
I know he hasn't been that good recently, but Craig Kimbrell was designated for assignment. That'll probably help them a little bit.
This time of year, that stunned me, and especially now you're going into the playoffs. That stunned me. They're still going to be the wild card. They're 4 games up in the wild card, unless there's a absolute. If they don't win any more games, they might not be in. But my guess is that they're still going to be in the wild card. But I was stunned. That did I put my hand up by mistake here? Anyway, I was stunned that they cut him. Why did they cut Kimbrel?
He's been bad.
Wow.
Like really bad. I'll have to pull up his stats. But,
Yeah.
I am interested. Craig Kimbrell's going to be an interesting case to see if he plays again. I'm sure he probably will pick up somewhere.
Yeah. He won't be
but-
eligible though, right? For the postseason. Somebody picks him up for these last 10 games.
Yeah, he's ineligible for the postseason. I'm talking more like next year.
Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha.
So let's see here. Craig Kimbrell. Overall this year with Baltimore, 7-5, which is a lot for a relief pitcher. 5.33 ERA.
Yeah.
In 52 innings, he has walked 31 batters, struck out 73.
Yeah.
His ERA plus is the worst it's been since 2019 at 71.
Yeah.
Last year he was an all-star, so I don't know.
Yeah. But the we'll talk about both these wild card races, right? I think it's gotten so interesting in the American League with now the Royals and the Twins kind of now holding on. The Twins only a half game in front of the Detroit Tigers. Who saw that coming? And I know you won't admit it, but AJ Hinch is a very good manager. I know he managed your favorite team of all time, but I mean, what are your thoughts here on what's happening in this race and how the Tigers have kind of snuck in?
Um, the Tigers started improving once they benched Javi Baez.
Yeah.
Last game that Javi Baez, since the last game that Javi Baez has played, the Tigers have the best record in the American League. It's like 15-6 or something like
Yeah.
that. But also like they are being led by the probable Cy Young. I mean, I don't know if we want to talk about that
Yes,
now,
we are talking about that. Yeah, we can almost go there now if you want.
but yeah, I mean,
Let me pull up what
Scubo's been
happened.
excellent.
So listen, Tariq Skubal has had a great year. And if he gets, I'm thinking he has probably at least 2 more starts, right? You would think if they have 10 games left, he probably has 2 starts left. I mean,
Yeah,
listen to this year that he's having. I mean, he's got the triple crown, right? What they say, he's 17-4. That's a great record these days, man. In this era, especially 2.48 ERA is also a great ERA. I mean, 25 years ago, you'd be like, okay, that's good, but today, that's an excellent ERA. He's been clutch. He has 221 strikeouts, so he leads the league in wins, in ERA, and in strikeouts. But I'm not. If I had a vote, I'm voting for the closer there in Cleveland, Emmanuel Clase, because he is having a year for the ages, Ken. Now he's got 46 saves. He's 4-2. Kenny, I'm going to say this really loud. He's got a .64 ERA. A .64 ERA. The Guardians have not lost a game all year. There's 10 games left. So 152 games. They have not lost a game all year when they took the lead into the 9th inning. I mean, I just now here's what's going against him. The American League doesn't usually, remember I told you there's these National League and American League tendencies, even though these are generations of voters. Remember we talked about how the National League will tend to take a guy like Francisco Lindor and maybe vote him as the MVP instead of Shohei Ohtani, even though Ohtani's stats are far superior. But it's that Lindor meant a lot more to the team. You don't usually see that in the American League. You see it every once in a while in the National League. The American League, it's rare that you see a closer win the Cy Young. You know when the last closer that won the Cy Young in the American League?
Dennis Eckersley.
Dennis Eckersley, 1992. How long ago is that? That's 32 years ago. And he had a season that was very, very, very similar to the season that Clase is having. It's going to be fascinating to me. But Clase, since Cleveland, that's the stat that's the game changer for me, that they have not. Now, they may lose a couple of games. He may blow a couple of saves in these last 10 games, which might change it a little bit. But as of right now, I mean, for a team, and I think K-Rod, I think the 2003 Angels was sort of like that, where they didn't blow a game, if they had a lead in the 9th inning. There's probably been a couple of teams over the years. I want to say the Brewers with Raleigh Fingers he was another guy who won, I think in 81, 82. Willie Hernandez won in 84. But it's been far and far in between for the American League. Clase is just having and it's under the radar. I don't hear many people talk. Maybe they're talking about him there in Cleveland, but I don't hear much talk about him in these parts or on the national stage. I guess maybe same thing how not many folks talk about Jose Ramirez, What are your thoughts? Who are you giving it to?
It's tough because I agree, especially when I'm looking at the American League. I do think the Yankees will probably finish with the best record. The Yankees own the tiebreaker over everyone except for Baltimore. If they win the series against Baltimore, they'd hold that one too. But like, if I'm looking outside the Yankees, Cleveland might be the toughest out.
Yeah.
And I say that with all due respect to the Astros because they're always annoying. But the Guardians bullpen has been tremendous this year. Their bullpen ERA is the lowest any bullpen has had since 2015. And amazing. I don't know. Part of me, it's hard because I think if you have a pitching triple crown, I think there's still too many traditional people. Even though like wins is kind of becoming more of an outdated stat, people will still see, oh, he led the league in wins, ERA, and strikeouts.
He could have 19. If he wins 2 more games, he could have 19 wins. which is great. When's the last time we saw a 20 game winner? It's been a minute. Um,
Yeah,
you know, and listen, what's helping Scooble's case, I think, right? And this is no shade on him at all. I think what's helping his case right now is that the Tigers are in contention, so, and he's a huge part of why they're in contention. I mean, you have a lockdown starter like him, you'll stop a losing streak, you'll keep a winning streak going. And he's been that guy for Detroit this year. So that's going to keep his case going. It's not like, he's winning 17, 18, or 19 games on the Oakland A's. You know what I mean? No shade on Oakland, but they're a contending team right now. They could get into the postseason, which will really help his case. But Cleveland has been good all year, right from the beginning. And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, let me point this out. Well, I'll just ask you. So you said 0.64 ERA. I looked this up. Do you know how many runs he's actually given up this year?
how many?
5.
He's given up 5 runs all year.
Clay Holmes has given up probably 5 runs in his last 2 appearances.
I mean, he's as close to unhittable. Dare I say, listen, I'm not comparing him to the greatest closer of all time, Mariano, but this is a Mariano-ish type season that he's having. And that kind of also brings out my point on the American League voters. Mariano never won a Cy Young, and so, and he probably should have a couple of times. We could probably go back over his career and find some years that were just where he gave up probably 5 runs as well. Um, it's amazing. It's going to be really fascinating. This next 10 games all over baseball is going to be so interesting. Um, Let me hit the National League real quick. I'm feeling really good about the Mets, even though they have a brutal schedule. 4 games against the Phillies, then they go to Atlanta for 3, and then they finish with the Brewers. So, and the Brewers and Mets had that those 2-3 games early in the season where they really don't like each other. So I don't think the Brewers are going to be sitting all their regulars when they have those last 3 games against the Mets. 3 of these 4 games with the Mets and the Phillies are on national television. So they've kind of caught on. I don't like that they're the Sunday night game, and I normally don't mind that, but it's fan appreciation weekend. It's the final home game of the season. You're going to have families coming out Sunday night. I'm just not crazy about that, but it is what it is. It's the biggest game. Probably the biggest game, biggest series of the weekend. Listen, the Mets have that 2-game lead over Atlanta, so it's in their hands, right? With 10 games to go. They also have the tiebreaker against Arizona, which is big, right? Because they're still tied now with Arizona for the second spot. And then you have San Diego, which I don't think anybody's going to catch them. So I'm feeling real good. Here's the thing. You're not going to have Lindor tonight. Who knows if he comes back, how good he's going to be. I'll talk about our Acuna in a second. JD Martinez is in an awful slump. He's batting around 239 now, to the point where he's been benched a couple of times. Now he's still clutch. He's going to probably have 80 RBIs. He comes through in the clutch, but that's about it. I've seen him strike out on more sweepers than I can, him and actually Pete Alonso. Now Alonso has been hot this past week. I'm saying him, Brandon Nimmo, and Pete Alonso, we need them to be hot these last 10 games, especially if we're not going to have Lindor. Vientos is gonna do his hitting. Francisco Alvarez seems like he's bounced out of his kind of season-long slump. But those 3 guys are the veterans. They really have to step up if Lindor is not going to be playing these last 10 days. I think he'll play next week. I'm just thinking he probably won't play this weekend. So Luis, Angel, Acuna, I don't want to get too excited because we see this a lot, Kenny. Someone comes up, they tear it up the first, time, because there's really no scouting reports on them, right? They have the scouting reports from the minor leagues. And he didn't have a really good season in the minor leagues. I think he batted like 251. This guy looks like a ball player. That's all I'll say. And he reminds me of his brother. He's got the same swing and everything. He's small. His brother is bigger, and but maybe he'll fill out a little bit more. But he's played a flawless shortstop. He seems like he has ice water in his veins. Nothing seems to phase him. And he's hit 2 home runs already. He hit another home run last night. So I like what I see with him so far. You just never know. But I got to tell you this, he will be on the team next year. He will be on the team, I think, from the beginning. Him and Ronnie Mauricio, I think will be on the team right at the beginning next year. They're going to figure out where to play these guys. He plays shortstop, second, and center field. So some of these guys that are on 1-year contracts that I really like, that I hope they bring some of them back, like Bader. Tyrone Taylor's been really, really good. Tyrone Taylor's probably been the best fourth outfielder that the Mets have had in a long time. He's a epitome of what a fourth outfielder should be. Kevin Pillar was kind of the same way. But Taylor's a little bit of a better hitter and faster. So anyway, listen, are the Mets going to get in? I hope so. And then let the chips fall where they may. But it's been fun, man. It's been a great season so far. And these next 10 games are going to be extremely fun. So what's your final take on MLB postseason stuff?
I mean, you said it nicely. I think at this point, the Yankees and the Guardians, I would also add in there, are more looking matchups than anything else.
Yeah.
There is still a little bit of the who's going to finish with the 1 seed. Where I'm on the page now, I might as well run through a few scores here. The Orioles are up 3-2 in the 7th over the Giants, so they're trying to salvage the last game there.
Yeah.
The Guardians have just tied up the Twins at 2. I think their magic number going into today is 6 to clinch the division.
Yeah.
Braves are up 11-2 on Cincinnati. So Mets need a win to keep up with keep up with it. So
keep up with the Braves. Yeah. Yeah. The Braves lost some heartbreakers, man, to the Dodgers and then to Cincinnati. I watched the Sunday night game with the Dodgers. I was texting you that, man, oh man, Walker Buehler, he just doesn't look the same, but he righted the ship and he pitched like 5 more flawless innings after the first couple of innings. And then they exploded, I think, in the 8th inning, and they wound up winning that 9-2. And then they beat them again on Monday. But it was that loss at Cincinnati, man. They were up 5-1 in like the 7th inning, and they let the Reds come back. This is the time of year, man. You saw where the Rockies took 2 out of 3 from Arizona. It's the time of year where those teams that have nothing to play for become spoilers. That's their biggest games of the year, So I'm glad the Nationals, the Mets didn't allow them to do that, So, all right, it's going to be fun, right? Fun time of year. Are you ready to go to inspiration, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, I will be quick. Tua Tagovailoa is my inspiration this week. We didn't his injury, latest one, happened on Thursday night, and we record, Thursday afternoon. So we hadn't talked about it. And I had to go back, and I know we've talked about him before, but I had to go back, and I want to read this real quick because I'm not worried about him. I think that he is not going to be led by money. I think he's not going to be led by what the doctors say. I think he's not going to be led by what his family says. I think he is going to be leaning totally on Christ right now as to whether he should get back on the football field. It's easy for me to say I don't want to see him play again. I mean, all of his concussions have been scary, especially his last 2, where his arms kind of just, I've never seen that before until I see that with him. Actually, I take that back. There's a few players I've seen that happen to wide receiver for the Bills. And actually, I think Wes Welker, if I remember right, took a hit like that one time for the Patriots, and his arm kind of went stiff like that. But this is just a reminder. Was in 2023 when they lost their first game to the Bills. On the podium after the loss to the Bills, Tua spoke for a couple of minutes about how he believes in Jesus Christ and how this helps him in all kinds of aspects. I think the best thing about being a believer of Jesus Christ to me is that the good Lord above doesn't care whether you win a game or whether you lose a game. For me, it's been a little tough having to play on Sundays, having to understand that I'm not going to be able to go to church. A lot of it is having to watch church online after games and things like that. But allowing me this platform, to me, is the best thing in the world to be able to profess my faith, something that I firmly believe in and something that's been foundationally instilled in me from a young age. The quarterback even admitted that he prays on the sidelines and sometimes catches the attention of teammates. While I'm out there, I even pray before I go to an offensive series, he explained to the media. I'm always praying on the sidelines. It looks like I'm talking to myself, speaking in tongues. I grew up in a non-denominational Christian church my entire life, so that does a lot. Having to remember scripture always keeps me encouraged and continuing to press forward, especially in times like these. So that was back last October. And so I'm not worried about him. I think that God will, I'm sure he's been doing a lot of praying and God will guide him to what, God thinks is best for him, whether that's retiring now or whether that's getting back on the field. I think that God is going to continue to guide him. So Tua is my inspiration this week.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I do hope him well. Um, and I know people will see the irony of him and DeMar Hamlin, which I think is still so interesting. But
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I was a little occupied this week with
Yes.
finding inspiration. So I actually had wanted to share with like a verse that I've been kind of meditating on all day. So you're not on Facebook or whatever. Yeah, we found out yesterday that we're having twins.
Yes.
And so grandpa over here is going to be grandpa of 8, not 7.
Oh my God. Yes.
And really, like, the verse that's been sticking out to me has been Ephesians 3:20. Now all glory to God, who is able to, through his mighty power at work within us, to accomplish infinitely more than we ask or think. God loves to blow our minds. And sometimes when we just say yes, we never know what that yes will be. And sometimes, like in the sports world, saying yes to signing with a certain team or saying yes to like changing a position, you never know what that's going to lead to. Like, I mean, case in point, Aaron Judge in 2022 was like, hey, I'll be the everyday center fielder. And the guy hit 62 home runs. Juan Soto gets traded and he's 40 home run season and is now home run in every ballpark at the age of 25. You just never know what life can bring you. And we're excited. We're also a little like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But we'll figure all that out. But it's just always, I think it goes back to, number one, God loves to blow your mind. And number two, keep the glory where it belongs. Give the glory back to God. So
no doubt. No doubt. I'm still speechless on that news yesterday. I'll probably have more to say next week because I don't know what to say. It's just the Lord's blessing is just amazing. Well said, Kenny. Loved every second of it. Big week coming up next week. We've got a lot of great football games. We're going to be right there at the last weekend of the baseball season. So fingers crossed for my Mets. Yes. What a turnaround though. I mean, in May, early June, I was like, this is going to be a long year. And here they are, late September, and they're right in the thick of it. In fact, they're up. They're in right now. So we'll see. All right, bud. Take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next time.